Welcome, guys, to the daily analysis for January 20th. As we return from the long weekend in the markets, we are opening up with a big gap down due to the rhetoric about Greenland from Trump that started this weekend. If you guys don't know the whole story, here's a quick summary. He threatened tariffs, or he imposed tariffs on Europe unless they agreed to a tariff deal with him about Greenland. And yeah, the markets didn't respond to it well. And then there was some escalation, just rhetoric. And now Trump is meeting with the EU representatives in Davos. All right. So, classic structure of a Trump taco trade. Obviously, not ideal that the news came out on the weekend, even though that's how it usually works with him. So, that's the reason for the big gap down in case you were living under a rock over the weekend. All right. So, what we are going to do in today's daily analysis is we are going to start with some big context. A lot of people are worried about the current consolidation, and they start comparing it to the consolidation of last year that resolved lower because of similar Trump rhetoric. All right, the Trump's tariff stuff, which went out of control and led to that big pullback all the way into April. We had a similar consolidation before that. And people are starting to draw parallels and think that this is going to lead to another major pullback. However, in terms of market structure, there are some big differences. First of all, in that pullback that happened all the way in January, that started in January, the breakout was all the way back in late 2023. We had already moved up, had this first consolidation, moved up, had a bigger pullback, all right, for the 21 MA box. Then that bigger pullback led to the first consolidation that failed out after. Right now, what we are going through is simply that first consolidation. All right, we already had this pullback. We already had a bigger box here. So what we are going through right now is this first consolidation that we faced in 2024 of 2023. And there's a high chance that resolves to the upside. All right. Okay, I used this the first consolidation after this big pullback. What else? Well, another thing you guys might want to see is semiconductors were nowhere near their highs when we were having that rhetoric about tariff stuff in last January. So you guys can see they never really recovered after that pullback in August. They were relatively weaker, did not make new highs. They were not leading. Growth names were getting demolished before that big pullback also early last year. And that's quite the opposite right now. Even after all the shenanigans of the weekend, SOX is almost at the same drawdown as QQQ. If things were actually weak, if you're not going to resolve to the upside, this should be a lot worse. All right, so that's just some context for you guys to show how things are not similar to early last year. Market is more aware of Trump's chaos right now. And at least where things are, the structure still supports for another push higher. Just because things look similar doesn't mean they are. All right, what else do we have? There's another thing. I will put up the chart of NASDAQ because it's cleaner. I have no drawings on it. So I'm going to try and show you some extensions. I've already drawn this in the tutorial I made on the zones. But one thing I want to show you guys is this. If we look at the consolidation of 2021 throughout this entire pullback in 2022, we are back near the highs, and then we broke out in late 2023. If we project this box higher, if we project this consolidation higher, the halfway line is around here. Okay. And you guys can see that halfway line is where we consolidated before that push into January of 2025. The second extension, that's where the big pullback came. The big pullback found support right around this area, took off, and now where are we consolidating? We are consolidating right above this 2.5 extension. So on NASDAQ 100 index, it's around 24,645. On QQQ, that's around 600 level. As long as we keep holding this 600 level, we are very likely to go and test this third extension up. On NASDAQ, it will be around 27,400. On QQQ, that's around 660. So you guys can see that this consolidation, as long as 600 holds, none of the shenanigans of Trump are going to stop us from resolving to the upside. So again, this is all for context. In case you got fearful, extremely fearful over the weekend, just realize It's nothing to really worry about. It's the classic Trump trade. Oh, and while we are having this talk, SOX has become stronger than QQQ in the pre market. That's a good sign.